Look who's back, like he never left. The best show of the best shows has officially returned. Bigger, better, and much more athletic. For Canon's sake is officially back. With no-nonsense commentary on entertainment, politics, and whatever else we want. And now, for your host, the frontman of Backwards and founder of the Rippaverse, Mr. Eric July.
What is up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. We are live for another episode of For Canon's Sake. I want to thank each and every single one of you guys for tuning in. We have our new format as we discussed in the last show. We had Dan Vask on yesterday, and man, the show turned out well. So I want to give a big shout out to all of you, the fans, supporters, for that feedback. It does look like this new format is going to work for us. It's going to work for everybody here as far as what we're doing with the Rippaverse. And I'm dedicating really the same amount of time, less even in some cases, than I was when I was doing the longer show. So I want to thank you all for that idea, because that was really just fan feedback, supporter feedback. So again, I want to give a big shout out to each and every one of you, and I had to open the show with that. But today, and I will set the scene. Of course, I'm Eric July, the host of For Canon's Sake, but I do want to set the scene for today's guest before I bring him in. So the Soskas, you know, writers of Yaira, as well as some our editors, they do some things with us with our, as far as being our lore masters, but they introduced me to our next guest. I got a chance to, long before today's show, chat with him, pick his brain, got some advice as well that I'm really taking to heart. About some of the stuff that we have going, and it's just I'm so appreciative to be able to pick the brain of a lot of these veterans. So when we got to chatting, and we figured that we would bring him on the show. He has a lot of creative projects it is that he has been working on as well, and I figured, why not? Let's have brother man here. So today's guest will be, you know him, Marvel Knights, Event Comics, just so much, Panilla Jane, just so much, and we're going to talk about it all, I promise you. Please welcome brother Jimmy Palmiotti. How you doing?
All right, good, Eric. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, and again, man, I appreciate you so much for joining us today, because I did get a chance to pick your brain the other day, but even there's some more things that I, of course, want to discuss, and I think would be very substantive for the audience as well. So I usually ask this for my first-time guests that are in comics. I usually ask them the same question, and that is, how did you get into comics, fall in favor with it, as well as what was your first kind of professional gig in comics?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I have 3 brothers, and so comic books. I have 2 older brothers, and comic books have always been around the house. They've always been, whether it's my brothers having them, I was getting them. Back then my parents probably bought them, so we'd be quiet for a little while, and my uncle had a barbershop which had a ton of comics in it. So I got into them at a very early age, and managed to meet a couple of friends that also collected comics, and I was lucky enough to have a comic store not too far from my house, so it kind of like supplied my habit, and I love them, and I love drawing, so I used to just sit there and I used to copy the drawings in the comics. I used to do that. Like, I was the quiet kid in my family, where I would sit at the table and I would just try to copy the art that I liked, and eventually I got to go to the High School of Art and Design in New York, and I took cartooning there. Mm-hmm. And while I was there, I actually, in 11th and 12th grade, I actually picked up some work ghosting for other artists. So there were like professional artists working around Manhattan. I would go to their place and I would help them finish the books. So there was a couple of guys like Dave Simons and Chick Stone and a couple other people. And so when I was in high school, I was actually working on comics. But I realized that it doesn't pay well. The guys I was working with, they were basically like living from check to check. And I was like, wait, these are the guys like doing major work, and they can't pay the bills. I'm like, there's got to be something up with this. And So I got out of comics. I went to college and took advertising and design. And then I started working out of college. I worked at an ad agency in New York for a good, I think, like almost 8 years, and did very well. Had clients that were like Pepsi Cola and Maybelline, and designed movie posters with Bill Gold for Mal Paso, which was Clint Eastwood's company. We did a lot of different advertising.
Nice.
But when I was getting around 30, I was doing some side comic stuff for some indie companies. But when I turned 30, I was like, I don't want to do advertising anymore. I really want to do comics. And I think I got it figured out. I think I got to figure out a way to make money to do this for a living. And I wanted to break into anywhere, Marvel, DC, anybody. And I had a buddy I went to high school, Mark Texera, and you might know Mark he's the guy that drew the Marvel Knights Punisher series. And at the time, he was penciling and inking Punisher and Ghost Rider monthly. So doing that for 2 books a month was killing him. So he asked me to help him, and I came in and I said, sure, I'll help you as long as we can work in the Marvel offices. And so every night I would finish my regular job. I'd go up to Marvel right on Park Avenue and 27th Street. I'd sit in the bullpen and I would work on his books, I would say till at least midnight, 1 a.m. They had a 24-hour security guard there, so you can come and go as you please.
Oh, nice.
And I helped him do a lot of books, get a lot of deadlines met. And while I was up there, I would stop into each office where the editors were. And every couple of weeks, I would leave them my samples. I would say, hey, if you need anybody, or if you're in a fix, I can help you. And eventually I got known as the guy that can help get a deadline hit. And the editors started using me. So eventually I started going up there, and I'd walk down through the office, and people would come out of their office and say, hey, Jimmy, when you got a minute, come see me before you leave. And eventually I was picking up inking work left and right. And I did some penciling work too, but mostly it was inking work. And from there, I just started getting books like I had started having, which is the ultimate compliment. I started having pencilers ask me to ink their stuff. Some of my first jobs were like over Dennis Cowan and Mike. I worked with. Well, actually, Mike Barron was writing the Punisher books I was working on. But like I started picking up work, and from there, started meeting people, and I took what I learned in advertising, and I applied it to the comics field. So even though I was only an inker on the books, I made it my business to make sure people knew who I was. And, that went into, I met Joe Quesada. We started doing work together. And then when the Image guys did their big launch, Joe and I decided, well, we can do that too. And we were just 2 guys from New York, and we put our money together and we launched Event Comics with Ash and Pantilla Jane. And yeah, I've been working ever since. I mean, I freelance wise, I've worked for everybody.
Right.
I worked for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image. Oh my God, IDW, everybody. Boom. Pretty much every company you can, think of. I did this because I needed to get my rate up. And every time I moved to another gig, I would ask for $5 or $10 more. So as I was jumping from job to job, I kept asking for a raise. And that still continues. I want to say I've been doing this for so long. I don't really remember half of what I do until I go to a convention and people stick a stack of books down, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. Yeah. But I having my own company, and then we got pulled in for Marvel Nights because Marvel was in Chapter 11, and they were desperate for anything, so they reached out to Joe and I, and then we just took a bunch of friends that we knew, like Mark and Christopher Priest and Kevin Smith, and we did 4 books, and we just said, we're going to make these books better than they do them. We're going to make them stand out. And that was a big success. And then Marvel got out of Chapter 11. Disney bought them for $1 bazillion. And that was my time to go. I was like, okay, I did what I had to do. And ever since then, I switched over to writing, less on the art side, more on the writing side. And I've been doing pretty good ever since. My company is Paper Films, which is basically me, Amanda, and a couple of friends. And and I've been working freelance ever since, writing like crazy, and some good books behind me.
Right.
So to speak. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask about that specifically, because you brought up briefly what was going on with Event Comics, and I would love for you to talk about that era because you had the early '90s. I know you were doing stuff with Valiant. That is stuff that got popped off with a Jim Shooter, who I recently actually met for the first time.
Yeah.
How was that like era in the '90s? It was starting to get a little competitive. Yeah, we know what happened on the latter half with Marvel. You kind of alluded to it, but what prompted Event Comics during that era?
Well, so it was a time where it was a very exciting time because the mainstream stuff wasn't that impressive. Although, I will say like Vertigo was doing some great stuff. There was one or two good books here and there, but the Image guys came in at the right time because they had energy behind them with that crew, Todd and Rob and, all those guys. And so the books had this pure energy about them. And I think it's what people were looking for at the time. They wanted something that was not the norm. And for us with Pantilla Jane and Ash, we figured we'd launch, we only two guys, so we would launch a couple of books that we felt were pretty grounded, and we kept them in New York, and we did a fireman and a cop, so pretty easy if you think about it. But it was an exciting time because while we were doing that, we were getting offered stuff all the time. Like Exo Zero we did, and a couple issues of Ninjak. I inked a bunch of Solars, and I was doing X up at Dark Horse, and I pretty much had a book everywhere because I was able to ink like 2 or 3 books a month, so I was able to do a lot of different things. But I also was at the age, I was in my mid-30s where I had like a ball of energy, man. I had like too much vitamin B, and I would work constantly. I would say my dinners when I had to pull all-nighters were Chinese restaurant, a rack of ribs, and 2 or 3 Mountain Dews. Like I had the gamer's fuel going while I was doing comics. But it was an exciting time because all of a sudden creators started owning things, or they co-owned things, and the companies had to keep up with it, so companies had to offer deals not to lose their creators. And again, this was all happening when Wizard Comics started, right? Yeah. Wizard Magazine started. And when Wizard came out, it changed the industry because all of a sudden here was a magazine putting the faces of the creators on it and then talking about the market and the aftermarket and what's coming. And, we didn't have the internet then. The internet was just starting, maybe 78, where some people had computers to do chat boards and stuff like that, but there was not a lot going on. So anytime we had to do press, we had to go out there, and there was a comic buyer's guide and Wizard Magazine were the 2 main things, maybe the Comics Journal as well. But it was a very exciting time because when we also did signings, it was like a ton of people would show up, like, because it was rare. Stores weren't doing signings as much as they do now. And there weren't as many cons as there are now. So the whole world was a little bit different, but it was an exciting time because it felt like there were so many possibilities. I mean, even for Joe and I, around 96 or 97, I think I still have the check hanging somewhere. I have a copy of it. But we got an offer from DreamWorks to buy Ash. And then, and then when the 2000s came, again, we had an offer twice to do Pantilla Jane. We did a TV movie and then we did a series, 22 episode series. So the possibility of creating your own thing and making a living off it was there. And we milked it. But I loved the characters. I still loved the Punisher, and I still love the characters of DC and Marvel. So every once in a while, I would dip in and say, let me do some of that. And of course, Marvel Knights, I got to really get in there, and we took over the penthouse of the building, Joe and I, and we really got in there to mess with the characters. But it was an exciting time because, again, it's not like when the internet now is like things happen, the minute they happen. Like a lot of stuff. People didn't know until they picked up Wizard Magazine or they went to the store and they had that weekly buyers, that newspaper thing you got that showed the books coming out. So the communication was not there. Is it better now? I don't know. I love the fact that, a certain amount of artists and writers are on the internet. You can chat with them, I kind of made it my business to be able to communicate with people and talk about what I'm doing. But not everybody's built for that. I still know a world of artists, my wife included, that never goes on. Like she has a funny, her Twitter name is Amanda Rants a Lot. And the joke is She doesn't rant at all. She's hardly on it. But she's managed to build her name up based on the quality of her work.
Right.
So people still run to her for stuff. And even though she's not out there except for conventions. And then, of course, she'll talk to you all day long. But it was an exciting time. Like I said, watching Todd and the guys do their stuff, it really inspired us to step out of what we were doing and give it a shot, and it did pay off for us very well.
Most definitely. Yeah. And with Event Comics, obviously you had a very successful, it's been published several places, but you mentioned Panilla Jane, and that was incredibly successful for you. We saw TV shows out of it, movie, some other stuff I know that you guys have worked on with it. Whose idea? I know you talked about you did some things with Joe, but like, how was that conceptualized, and what was it like seeing some of that original work that you did end up creating happen like out of print stuff with like movies and all of that?
Sure. I mean, when Joe and I were creating, we wanted to do we based the characters on people we knew. I knew a guy named Bobby Gallowitz who passed away recently, but he was a retired fireman, and he would tell us stories, and these were people we knew, and we thought, we're in New York. We figured, who are the heroes we know? Well, they're usually the cops and the firemen, obviously, and we tend to go towards the ones that we know, which are very honest, and very great people, inspiring people. So with Ash, we thought fireman superhero. Hasn't been done. It's so obvious. Like, you already call fireman a superhero, in a way. So it was so obvious. And then with Panilla Jane, we wanted to do something a little. A lot of the female characters coming out at that time were very, very. I want to say busty. And so we wanted to make Jane like a female cop and a little more athletic body. And that's why we had like Rick Leonardi doing the book, because he knew how to draw that lean, mean character. But we also wanted to give the character Jane an attitude that we knew, the women we knew were tough and ready and rugged. And, Jane is a mix of all the women we knew, including my mom and Joe's mom and the girls we know, because they were formidable, and we tried to put that into the character, and we modeled it after some people, but we both came up with stuff. The great thing about working with Joe is we bounced ideas back and forth, and if it sounded terrible, we would just say that sucks, and then if something sounded good, we did it. And then, of course, seeing, watching a TV show, seeing a sci-fi movie with your characters, it's always a mixed blessing, because, as much as we're involved, they still do what they want.
Yeah.
And what happens in Hollywood is a lot, and we know this, is they love the comic. We want the comic. We love everything about the comics. We want the rights. Okay, we got the rights. Let's change everything about the comic. And so Sci-Fi decided it should be a sci-fi show, a science fiction theme, fighting these characters. And, I was happy with who they chose, because, Kristana and I became friends. Kristana Loken and I became friends. I was happy with her, but I kept telling her, make your hair red, will you? Come on, I won't kill you. So it's like a mixed blessing. But I did get to go on the set, and I did write one episode called The League. It was the 13th episode, and I got all these credits. And as much as, even though when they mess with stuff, you realize at the end of the day, your comic still is exactly the same.
At least that's not changed.
So they're not messing with my comic.
Yeah.
I don't mess with their film. It's kind of an even exchange. I'm hoping currently I have a screenplay that I wrote with Craig Whedon on Jane that was shopping. That if that gets made, that'll be pretty accurate to what we did. So, but it took me a while to get there. I went to school for screenwriting, and I did all this stuff to get to that spot. And a lot of things that people know now about the business, I had to learn
the hard way.
So,
yeah.
I'm happy to share them with people now.
I mean, again, it was a different era, and we'll talk about this a little later, but I understand that now with this whole interactivity and internet, and so much has changed, and we're able to do things that we couldn't do, and that a lot of that has to do with the spread of information. So you bring up a great point there. But Going, I guess, kind of keeping it to the timeline. Obviously, Marvel Knights was massive for revitalizing Marvel in that latter half of the '90s with that whole bankruptcy and all of that was going down. So was that a thing that they either approached yourself and Joe with, or was it like something you guys pitched to them? Like how was that conceptualized as far as Marvel Knights? And it did end up being a huge success. I know you mentioned Christopher Priest. You mentioned, it's the Black Panther. You got obviously Daredevil, all of that good stuff. So what happened with that? How was that a thing? Was it one of those things like, hey, we're about to go bankrupt here, take it, fix it, and do what was the whole process there?
So the guy that owned Wizard Magazine, Gareb Shamus, he was friends with Joe Calamari, who was the president of Marvel Comics at the time, and Joe was looking for ways to bring excitement to the company. He says, "Look, we're in a spot," and because we dealt so much with Wizard, Gareb said, "You should get Jimmy and Joe up here and give them a line of books and let them have some fun with it because they know how to promote themselves." And I got the call from Joe and Calamari, and Joe and I went up, and he pitched us an idea. It wasn't called Marvel Knights. We came up with that. We were just going to do 4 books for them, but we wanted to label it so it was different than their regular line. So we came up with Marvel Knights. But he asked us what we'd be interested in. Of course, we told him, he proceeded to tell us, can't touch X-Men, can't touch Wolverine, can't touch this, can't touch that. But they had 2 books that were being canceled. Daredevil and Punisher were both being canceled at the time. And we knew that our buddy Kevin Smith, the film director, wanted to write Daredevil. So we said, well, we want Daredevil and we want to do it. Joe and I want to do the art with Kevin writing it. And then we said, we also want the Punisher because I worked on a ton of Punisher and I just felt like I knew the character. I understood his motivation. And then they said, what about the 2 other books? And Joe and I were both fans of the Fantastic Four. And we said, well, we love Black Panther and nobody's doing anything with Black Panther. Mm-hmm. So if we could have Black Panther, that'd be awesome. And we also want the Inhumans. And we did get a little side eye, like, why would you want those 2 books? But we had a plan. And that's how that started. So they agreed to this contract where they would give us a certain amount per book. We had to get the book out every month, otherwise we'd be fined. But if we got the book out on time, they give us a bonus. So it was like a little of this, a little of that. We said we needed to be in the offices, so we needed a couple of offices. And because I'd been up on the penthouse a couple of times, I said I would like the penthouse, so we have our own entrance, kind of like, up there. The elevator only went up to 12 at Marvel. So you had to go past the secretary to get up to our office. But when we got up there, we repainted the place. And we made it like the MTV offices. Like we put giant TVs, we put drawing boards in there, and we made it the place we worked out of. And we had our creators come, and they can work up there if they wanted with us during the day, or if they wanted to stay at night. With the penthouse came the rest of the roof, and if you went on the roof, it was the 13th floor. You can look up and see the Empire State Building was right there, and so a lot of good reference material when you're drawing those characters jumping around on roofs.
Yeah.
But they gave us a penthouse, and then we told them we want to launch all the books in 1 month and do a title per week, and then continue with that for the rest of the thing. Because we just felt like if we're going to do something new, let's make people buy the whole set. Let them, if you're going to buy Marvel Knights, if you're going to try Daredevil, but you don't like Inhumans, but we hope that you may give Humans a try. And we made it so people, how people collect, they want to get each one. So each week we had a new book launch. And right before we launched, guys like Kevin Smith would go out and do publicity at late night TV. And Joe and I were doing TV, like we were doing like the day show, morning shows in New York. And we were promoting the line, like this is a new line. We got computer coloring, which a lot of people didn't really use at that time. And, I said the production on the books are going to be better. The art's going to be better. The stories are going to be crazy. And with the help of Wizard Magazine, because Gareb invested, threw us into that little fire pit. We made sure he promoted the line, and then the line launched, and it was a monster. It was better than Marvel expected. For us, it was, when it launched, we were already on issue 4. So we're thinking about, we're worrying about deadlines and everything. but it was an exciting time because we would go to the shows and people would give us all 4 books to sign, you know. And then when 8 came out, then we'd get all 8, you know. And I'm still signing those Black Panthers and Humans,
Yeah.
everything. And again, Kevin Smith, it was his first big book he ever did, and he was going on talk shows talking about it. And then we had like movie people and TV. I remember a buddy of mine was John Singleton, and John used to invite me and Amanda to all his premieres, right? And I remember being at one of the premieres with Amanda, and Wesley Snipes grabbed me and he dragged me out into the street, and he's like, "You and I have to talk." And I was like, "Okay." And he said, "I want to be Black Panther. You need me to be Black Panther." We had a whole conversation. And I told him, "Look, that's Avi. That's not me, man. I will give the information to Avi and have him call you." But I had people like coming up to me and saying, "Hey, we want to do this." And I said, "You don't understand. We just make the comics."
Yeah.
Maybe talk to Kevin Smith. He's got a lot more pull than we do. But it was a very exciting time. And again, we went around and did signings, and we talked to retailers. We went to all the shows and talked to the retailers. What can we do better for you guys? What do you want? A lot of them wanted some more alternate covers, but we just did 1 or 2 in a line. We didn't want to get into that thing. Right. And then, and then it went really well. I mean, all of a sudden, movie deals started getting made. People started looking at the books, and again, if you look at the 4 books we did, The Inhumans was a TV show, Black Panther, obviously 2 major movies. Daredevil is coming back. It was a show. It's coming back. And Punisher is always going to be out there. There's so many. I mean, Welcome Back, Frank was adapted. The one that Garth Ennis, Garth, and Steve did was adapted with the one with Thomas Jane. That Punisher movie. Was pretty much a sideways. Even though it was in Tampa, it was still an adaptation of the characters and everything. So we made a big mark, and things changed, man. I mean, but it was a matter of the right people on the right books, and it's not always as easy as it seems, right, to do that,
Yeah, that's again, it's an intriguing story just all together, having a lot of the guys with it that you were doing work with Event, and then kind of sliding into this Marvel Knights thing, and that becoming just such a massive success. Is just a cool story. I didn't actually know that bit about Wesley and Black Panther. That's pretty.
Yeah, it's funny because I ran into him at that party, right? And then I did a show. Amanda and I did a show. It was not about comics. It was about being the creative mind. And we did this thing in Monte Carlo. And so we were the comic book illustrator guests. Wesley was the entertainment guest, and there was an astronaut and a musician. And it was like a weird thing, but I saw Wesley again, and I also saw him right before he had some tax issues.
Yeah.
I had dinner with him and Anton Fuqua in San Diego. So I keep running into Wesley, and it's still nice. I still get texts from him because he calls Amanda his princess. He says, "How's the princess doing?"
Yeah.
But he's just look. I think if they make a new Blade, just put Wesley in it.
Why
cut
not?
To the chase, man.
He can still do. He still looks good, man.
Let him train a younger guy, but have him in it, because I mean that's, to me, my generation, that's Blade.
Absolutely.
Wesley is Blade.
Always will be. Always will be, as far as I'm concerned. So you've over the course of our discussion, you've of course mentioned Amanda, and I, obviously as a married man, I can relate to that. But you're in a position where you're in the same field. You get to really just break bread with your spouse, right? And right. I know that's a good feeling. So I just want to hear that perspective. How you guys met, obviously in comics, and how is it like, even with what you're doing on paper films, which you'll talk about a little later, like just being able to just break bread with your spouse, and be great.
Yeah, I met Amanda. I remember I was working for an editor, Hildy Mesnick, who handled the Disney comics at Marvel. And back then they were doing something like Lion King and Gargoyles and a couple of Aladdin and stuff like that. Anyway, she called me in. She said, "If you can come into the city, I want you to meet this artist we have, and I want you to ink some covers of her." And I had just finished the first issue cover for Gargoyles, and it was over Joe Madureira, right? Mm-hmm. And then she called me in. She says, "Well, this is, I want you to meet, this is Amanda Connor. She's drawing the book. and I want you to draw the cover. I want you to ink the covers that she's doing. And I met her, and Hildy just pulled me aside right before I met her and said, "Look, she's married. That's all I'm telling you, because I know you. She's married." I'm like, "Okay, fine, hands up." Anyway, I met Amanda, and of course she was delightful, and her artwork was great. And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to ink it." And I inked her covers, and she became friends with the gang that I hung out with. So she was there, and our husband was there, Steve, great guy, and we were all friends. And Amanda was telling me she kept getting the kind of work that was like Barbie and like, license work, and she wanted to try something different. And I showed her work to the guys at Harris Comics, and they wanted a new Vampirella artist. So along with myself, I got to work at Vampirella, and we stayed friends for years. We were just really great friends. She hung out in my group, and then her marriage went south. What happens in life sometimes, and we were just really great friends. We knew each other. She knew me as a single guy dating all these different girls, and we just were friends. And then she made a move on me, and that was it. She's not here to yell at me, but it just happened that look, she's one of the rarest women I know. This is a girl that saw Star Wars 22 times in the movie theater when it came out. Like her favorite movies are Terminator and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. She is a comic lover, and her background is she went to the Joe Kubert School, and then when she left Joe Kubert School, she started doing work, and she also was Bill Sienkiewicz's assistant for a while. So if you look at the last pages of Elektra Assassin, that's Amanda in an Elektra suit.
Okay.
And you can see it if you look at the book. You can see it. It's Amanda. But she's got a great career, and we worked a lot. I was her inker for a long time because she liked what I did. And then as I started getting writing work, I wanted to get some work with her. Excuse me. And I think we did a Rogue Wolverine story together first for a Marvel annual, and then Power Girl came, and me and Justin Gray were writing Power Girl, and we wanted her on that, and it was like the perfect fit, And then we've been together for a long time now. I mean, it's I don't want to say the years, because if I'm wrong by 1 year.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to hear it, man. So play it safe.
It's been great because we're both critical of each other's work, and we're able to go in and comment on it without us wanting to strangle each other.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do because it's hard not to take things personally. But we've also learned that together we're better than when we're separate.
Absolutely.
And so in that case, and honestly, she's also one of my favorite artists, and she's one of the best storytellers in comics. Meaning a single image by Amanda is always telling a story. A lot of people can draw characters standing around just posing. She always has something extra going on with her work, and and I think it's because of that. She draws in a way where the characters look at the audience, and a lot of people connect with her art because of that, and the clean storytelling. But like I said, we get along great. She works upstairs, and I'm downstairs. I'm here in the main floor, and she's upstairs.
Okay.
So we don't work in the same room together because that might be a little crazy. I also listen to music when I work, and she can actually listen to podcasts, whatever, because she's drawing. I can't have anything with words in it because it affects what I'm writing.
Okay.
But she's the love of my life, man. So it's kind of easy to talk all day long about her.
That's awesome, man. I love that.
She's not only like one of the best storytellers in the business, but she's just one of the best people I know.
There you go. And I love to hear that. Like I said, just being married myself, and she's very much, my wife's very much a part of a lot of what I do, even with Rippaverse, man. So I can feel you on that, and I had to get your perspective on that because Amanda's done a lot of work. You guys have teamed up, obviously, a lot over the years, and done some great work. So I know it has to be cool to sort of be able to break bread with the one you love. That's always awesome. Which kind of leads me to my next point. I mean, in the 2010s, obviously Power Girl, I know a lot of people know you guys from that. That was kind of my big introduction years ago in the 2000s, like to you guys' work as more of a tandem. But 2010s, we saw this absolute explosion of Harley Quinn, right? And you guys facilitated that Uber. I know when it first launched, it was uber successful with like even the Rebirth. You guys were doing some stuff with it before then, obviously, but that Rebirth stuff was massive. I remember so vividly at the time. So what was it like, obviously, because at the time when she's also explode, you had Suicide Squad thing going on, all of that stuff, and she's exploding amongst normies in kind of pop culture while you guys were handling her. So how was that bit? Because how many issues did that run?
Well, we did the original Harley series, and then Rebirth started, but we didn't redo the book. We just made believe it was the next issue, and then Rebirth. We've done 100 and I want to say maybe 110 or 12
crazy,
books.
Man. Yeah,
Harley books. When we were offered the gig, Dan DiDio offered us the gig. We were at a retailer convention, and one of the retailers was talking to me and Dan and a couple other people, and he said, you're Harley Quinn. You don't do anything with Harley Quinn. She's like the Deadpool for DC. Why don't you do anything with the character? And Dan just turned to me and said, you want to do maybe you and Amanda do Harley Quinn? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, let me go home and ask Amanda. And I went home and we looked, we knew Harley Quinn obviously from Paul Dini and Bruce Timm stuff, but we didn't read the last series, and we knew her from the cartoons. And the more I looked at her, I said to Amanda, I said, I said that the problem I have with the character is like it's a Batman universe character, meaning there's Batman and then there's the characters around them. And I said, the issue I have if we're gonna write a book called Harley Quinn is I needed to get her out of Gotham. I needed to get her away from Batman. She's got to be her own person, because I couldn't answer these two simple questions. What do they want? What does the character want? What does the character fear? And it wasn't clear to me. And we researched the characters. We read online what people liked about, what they didn't like. We read some back issues that didn't make sense. And then we read, the stuff, like there was stuff where she was out of character. And again, I worked on the Injustice game, so I knew the Harley from that game, which is a completely different version.
Yeah.
But we found that what Paul Dini and Bruce Timm created was like, all right, we get that. That's a girl from Brooklyn, from Canarsie in Brooklyn. She gets wrapped up in this stuff. But at this point, I said, if we're going to write it, we told Dan, I said, we're going to write it. We're going to do what we want with the character. And he said, look, it's probably not going to last more than 6 or 7 issues, so just have fun. I'm like, okay. And Amanda and I decided we needed to get her out of Gotham, so we had to move to Brooklyn, Coney Island. We decided that, I didn't want to do a book about Joker and Harley because we're never going to get to know her with him around, so we made them break up. I said, it's hard to write. I don't want to write a book about an abusive relationship every issue, And so we got her out of that relationship. And then Amanda was looking at the costume and saying, no girl wears the same costume. So no girl wears the same clothing all the time. So Amanda started doing some different designs. And the first issue cover is the roller derby cover because Amanda was just drawing it and said, she looks like she has like a roller derby almost. And we started laughing. I said, let's put her in a roller derby. And then, and then we did the Zero issue, which was, 20 different artists soliciting for the job of drawing Harley. That was like a joke thing we did that worked out really well. But we just decided to, okay, we're gonna do a book where you're gonna get to know who she is, and it's not gonna be about Batman and the Joker. It's gonna be about Harley Quinn, and we're also gonna give her her own supporting cast.
Okay.
Meaning the people that are in the burlesque, her parents, whatever we could in that world. And then we have Ivy visit once in a while and everything. So we just decided that, we're going to make a book about the character and less about the Gotham universe and the Batman characters. And nobody on earth thought that thing was going to do what it did. I mean, all of a sudden we hit on a couple of things, obviously getting her out of the abusive relationship. All of a sudden, her like part-time work at a senior's home, and she's got these crazy supporting cast that lives for her, instead of being a Batman runoff or a villain. And we hit on something that basically I always say, if you give the right people the room to do whatever they want, they're going to do it. And we had Chad Hardin drawing the book with us, and Chad was just amazing. And we told him every time she's in a different situation, you can mess with the costume. Just keep the red and the black and the diamonds somewhere.
Yeah.
And we didn't know we were going to cause a giant cosplay sensation.
Yeah,
All of a sudden,
that was crazy.
I think it was the first year we went to do San Diego, and there's like 1 million people dressed as Harley Quinn, and they're all different types of, oh, this is my Harley Quinn goth thing, and this is my Harley Quinn doctor's uniform. This is my so it was just that we were hitting all the right chords with people, and then we started noticing we had an audience of moms and teenage girls coming up for signings and saying they read the book together. And and we're like, we've never seen that audience in comics that much.
Yeah.
And so it just kept going from there, and we hung on as hard as we could for 5 years. I mean, we were averaging 2 to 3 books a month.
Yeah.
And after the 5 years, we figured we need a break from the character for a while. But it was a good 5 years. I mean, at one point, it was the #1 Halloween costume in the United States.
Yeah.
They announced do a Suicide Squad, and we go to the premiere and meet Margot Robbie and the cast, and and then they announced an animated show kind of based on it, and it's just been it was a real crazy ride. And for us, it was probably the easiest comic to write because we didn't do crossovers with the other books, and we also told Dan we don't want the character appearing in other comics. We want to keep it to our books. And he started saying, but we need to have some specials. And I said, all right, we'll do Harley's Little Black Book, and we did Harley Quinn Invades San Diego. We did these specials on the side. That was to keep them from overusing the character in other books, because we knew the minute they do that, the character's in trouble. And then we left the book after 5 years, and she appears in every book. And
yeah, she's in everything. Yeah,
and she's back in Gotham. But our run was unique. I mean, they made 3 omnibuses, and if anybody wants to check out almost all of the books we did, those 3 omnibuses cover it.
There you go. That's what's up. I mean, yeah, again, seeing that character explode in 2010s was, I mean, it became like this sort of cultural phenomenon, and it was crazy to watch. So just to switch gears just a little bit, I know we've spoke behind the scenes briefly. There's it's creators that you go way back with. We talked about Mike, our man's Billy Tucci, Graham Nolan. I remember you and Amanda was on Storytellers with our man's.
Amanda went to Cuban school with him.
Yeah, there you go. So it's cool kind of watching all that connect. But obviously, there's been this sort of OGs, as I call them out here, creatives like yourself that have been around the block for a very long time, and they found their way in doing and continuing to create. It may not be for the mainstream, but they've seen a lot of success. Can you speak to kind of that shift there, where it be with crowdfunding, which has completely changed the game and lowered the barrier of entry and allow creators to do all these different things? You've done a bunch yourself as well, but just in comparison to how work has traditionally been done back when you were coming up at like the 90s versus what we have now, like speak to that dynamic, or rather that just complete difference that we see now.
Sure. I mean, in the 90s, we had Image Comics, right? And those guys, they really need got to get a lot of credit for saying, you know what, we're going to just do our own thing and own it ourselves. And it was a gigantic step, and I think a bigger risk than they even thought. They went on pure adrenaline, not knowing where it would go.
Yeah.
But for a long time, we there was only Marvel and DC, right? And then there's some other company like Dark Horse and other companies, and but they own the characters, right? So you have a certain amount of talent that grows up saying, you know what, one day I'm going to write or draw Spider-Man, and one day I'm going to do Batman. And I get that, and it's great when you can do that. You get a chance, and then hopefully, I always say you move on from it. You're like, all right, I did it, now I can move on. And of course that's realistic because we grew up with these characters.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
idea of writing one of them is exciting. For me, it was, a lot of different characters I got to work on. But I started looking at it, and I guess I mentioned it earlier that I was in advertising. I was in a different business where I ran a business. And that part of me wanted to own my own stuff, and the creator-owned deals that they had were not really, they were not creator controlled, because even though they were giving you a percentage of the stuff, they still controlled the media rights and everything. and a lot of and the biggest problem they did, which I actually felt, was that even when we did the creator-owned things, where creator shared, we call it creator shared, where we owned a piece of it, they would run the media part, and half of the time they wouldn't include us. You know, they would say, well, you know, you created the book, you're good, we'll have a set visit for you. You know, you'll get to visit the set or something, and that was supposed to keep us, you know, fine, because we make movies, you guys don't know what you're doing, you know, or this is our character, even though you did a story that we're now adapting the movie, we don't really need you for that, but we'll give you a thank you at the end of the credits. Thank you. And or sometimes you'll get a check, and it's a check, it's a minimum check. I would say I'd rather have the guy who drove the car, this movie started the set back and forth for the whole movie shoot. I'd rather have his pay than what they give me for a bonus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, as the years went on, we see this more and more, you know, and there wasn't really a place to go. You can go to Image and do it, and Image is great. Don't get me wrong. Image is terrific. You can bring your book to them, they'll sell it and everything. But, you know, there is a fee, and there is a, you know, they have to choose to do it or not. And again, you had to bring the book in done. And the problem with making a living and having a family and all that stuff is, you know, you have to throw thousands and thousands of dollars into the production, and then you have to hope it sells or not. And
it's a risk.
I was looking for something different. I was looking for another way to doing the books besides self-publishing, because self-publishing is tough because you have to deal with a middleman and then a retailer. So there's actually two middlemen.
Yep. I say it all the time.
Before I get the books to somebody, right? Retailer and then company, you know, and there's just so much involved. And I always felt like creative's energy should be creating, not so much production.
Agreed.
And then I read, I think it was like 2011 or 12, I read this whole article about this new company in Brooklyn that started called Kickstarter, and how they would crowdfund, how you can bring a project, yada yada yada, you know the drill, and then the people can back it if they like it, and then you can deal directly with the audience. So I tried it. I did a book called Queen Crab, and it actually funded pretty quick, and I got the book out, and then I've done 20 something after since it. But I found that doing this, I'm able to control all the rights to everything I do. I pay my team, and then if I make extra money, I give it to my team. I share with my creators, and I'm able to take care of my group. And I never stopped doing the mainstream books, meaning I do these books. And like right now, I'm working on Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger for Todd McFarlane. So I'm doing a monthly book for Todd because I can, and because I love that character and I like working with Todd. But I get to do these crowdfunding things and create and retain the rights. And while I was doing it, I had a bunch of friends, Brian Polito, Billy, a whole bunch of people asking me, how do you do this? What should I do? And I said, look, I've done enough that I'm going to tell you, you're going to lose your shirt if you start, you know, putting this, don't do this, don't do that. I learned, like, I have a giant list of how not to do it. The other side of it is, I said, we're going to build, we actually build up a crowd of people that actually believe in what you do and the books you do. And don't get me wrong, it's just as much work, if not more work.
Oh, I'd argue it's more
than just working somebody. Working for somebody. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, I'm a production guy. I make sure my books look amazing, the art's great, the story is as best as I can do, and it just changed the field. It's changing the field now because, remember, there was a time when the alternate cover game was basically for smaller companies to do to try to get their numbers up. Once the big two took that on, they went crazy.
Oh man, they went insane with it.
Right. So, and the problem with that is it's energy spent on covers and not on content. And it's, you know, and I get it because these giant companies are basically owned by stockholders. And so their incentive isn't always to take care of creators. It's more to take care of the stockholders first. And that's a basic law of business. I don't hold it against them. That's the way they do their business. But you have creators that are expecting these companies to take care of them. And those expectations now have to be thrown out the window. Now they have to understand it's a freelance gig. You work until they don't need you. The minute they don't need you, you're done. You know, good luck. There's no job security in comic books. It's just not there. And I learned that my security in my career and Amanda's career is basically the people that support us.
Yes.
Those are the people, not the companies, because the companies never paid for my medical coverage. They never sent me on vacation, and they never gave me a 401k. Okay. But I do that for myself and Amanda, you know? And so I realized that you just have to be, it's not like anybody's bad guys or good guys. What it is it's a different business model.
Yeah. Yeah.
And complaining about it's a waste of time because you literally can just say no to the work that's offered to you.
True.
I think it's sort of like, you know, it's sort of like saying going skydiving and complaining while you're in the plane going, you know, I can't, you guys are making me do this. Like, hey, dude, you signed up for skydiving and you got in the plane. You have to know we're going to throw you out the door right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And in a way, when you work for the companies, you understand that if you do a cover for them, charge what you got to charge, make yourself happy, be content with it, because that's pretty much all it's going to do. When you see it on the box of a toy, when you see a figure, understand you may or may not get a dime from it. You know, I was just looking at a Funko Pop they did from a cover Mark Texera and I drew, and they made a Funko Pop. It has my name on the box, everything. I haven't seen a dime of it. I haven't gotten a copy of the Funko Pop.
That's crazy.
So that kind of gives you that's the reality of it. As much as people, the only money I make is when people come to a con and they give me $5 to sign that Funko Pop. That's the only money I make off that Funko Pop.
That's crazy.
But you just got to be realistic. Like I said, it doesn't have to be about anger or pissed off or pointing fingers. That's just the way. When you go in that house, you get hit in the head with a bat. When you go in that house, you get hit in the head with a hammer. Understand that these houses, you should know what it is by now. And again, I think the people coming in maybe have a more realistic attitude of what the companies do for them. I definitely had to learn the hard way, you know, a lot of hard work and, you know, getting compensated like as an afterthought, or I had to ask for something. And there's nothing worse than when you have to make a call and ask so they can put a thank you at the end of a movie thing based on something you worked on, and you don't get it, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm hoping the companies treat people better now, but people also have to understand that corporations and they're owned by stockholders. It's not one person up there. It's thousands of people looking at a thing they get every month that says the stock went up 2 points or whatever. So I as much as I love work, and I do love working for different companies, I support also the creators doing their own work. And nobody can say I can't, because just look how many Kickstarters I backed.
Oh yeah, it's like 300 plus, isn't it?
Look what you do. You're launching these characters. You got great people working for you. You know, it's a new world, and I'm hoping we can gain more people's trust, because when I started, there were creators that didn't fulfill their Kickstarters, or they didn't fulfill their Indiegogo campaigns. And I would have that thrown in my face.
Yeah, that's the thing that sucks. They try to apply that to you as well, so it sours kind of the bunch. I get that, yeah.
Right, and I always say to them, I'm like, talk to anybody that's backed them. I don't have one. I actually asked the companies, can we do a rating thing? Because I would love for people to Google rate my Kickstarters in a way. But I've always delivered for everybody, and if anyone ever had a concern, I would just email them and we talk it out. And I get them on the phone and say, okay, how can we make this right by you? Because you know as well as I do, Eric, the customer is king, man.
Yeah, all day long.
If they're happy, I'm happy, and we can get back to work.
That's what it's about. Yeah, most definitely. And this actually is a great time to kind of segue into this. I would love for you to go into more detail about this latest Kickstarter that you guys have, as well as what happened or what's going on with Paper Films. What is it, right, for that matter? Lay it all on us. Take as much time as you need.
Sure. Well, Paper Films is the company, Amanda and our company. So we have like a license, the whole thing, a legal thing, and it's a company, and we put out our own books, whether it's through Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or any of those formats. We also put out our own prints. We sell our comics. We sell our digital books. It's all on the paperfilms.com site. Beautiful. So it's basically like having your own company. We're not big, and it's just us. So it's not, when you deal with something, we have our buddy Patrick kind of runs the day-to-day business with us, and he's the greatest guy. Everybody meets them, loves them. But we're just a company trying to get our work out there and person to person, and that's what we've been doing. And this is the latest Kickstarter that's up. It's called Fantasima, and it's written by me and drawn by Pierre Brito. And this book took us over maybe around 2.5 years to do.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 3-book Kickstarter which has the whole story. It's a mature audience's book. Those you're looking at right now, those are Joe Linsner covers for issue 1, 2, and 3. So you get all 3 books in the set.
Nice.
And it's a story about a brother and a sister that from South America that tragedy hits the family, and we think her parents and sister are dead, and the son grows up. This is 20 years later, without his family, and it's really affected him in his life. And then one day, he sees an exhibit in a museum of photos, and he thinks he spots his sister among a tribe in Chile, and he goes on an excursion to go there and find her. And it's a Jungle Girls type story. You can see by the art, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And lush. And again, Pierre took over 2.5 years to draw that. He penciled, inked, and colored it himself.
Oh, so you did color it as well. Nice.
Yeah, and because it's a personal project, we kept adding pages. We kept going, that's good. This reads well. It needs another 4 pages. Let's put another 4 pages. We kept doing that because it's like a film. The comic is like a film. That's why Paper Films is the name of my company, because we look at it and say, there's still something missing. There's still something missing. But with this campaign, we finally got the books done. I got the covers done. We got, like I said, the beautiful Joe Linsner covers. We also have covers by Pierre Brito. Did a cover. That's Pierre's. And then if we go down, we have Dan Panosian's cover. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Dan's
sick.
one of the hottest guys right now. And Dave Johnson did a cover. And also for the Kickstarter, we do, Amanda does these like really sexy mystery covers. We offer that like a set. So you don't know what you're getting, but everyone that's ever backed my Kickstarters always goes for those, because not only are they beautiful covers, and we do spot varnish, we do beautiful paper stock and everything, but also these are the books that we only do a couple of hundred of, right?
Okay.
Whatever is ordered in our Kickstarter is the complete run of the book plus 10% of the run, because we do that for damages.
Right.
In case we get damages. So they're instantly collectible. And then we have, for people anywhere, they can get all 3 books for only $15, and it's delivered right to their 3 PDFs to their email. And because we're hitting stretch goals, we're going to you'll be getting more than 3 books, obviously.
Yeah.
But we have different levels. I have a level with the script in case there's writers
cool.
out there and want to see how I format the script.
Check that out.
Yeah, for $5 extra, you'll get the whole script for the 3 issues, and you can see how terrible I can spell, and it's a lot of fun. And then we have this, which is like the 3 books plus 3 other graphic novels we did for $30. And we tried to make something that the digital for people that are out of the U.S. because it's very expensive to ship everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And then for $40 level, you get the 3 books. You also get, with every level you back, you also get all the digitals too.
Okay.
So you get the PDFs and you get the actual physical books. And these books are just, the covers are stunning by Joe. I don't know if you know Joe's stuff, but he's unbelievable. And there's an unsigned 40 set, $55. I sign all the books, and they each come bagged and boarded with a certificate of authenticity that I signed them.
There you go.
And again, we go on from there. There's all different levels.
So many levels, man. That's what's up.
That's a level where you get the 3 guys. You get the Dave Johnson, the Pierre Brito, and you get the Dan Panosian covers. And that's funny because we're only going to print to the run. So right now, we were talking, I think it's only like 50 copies or maybe 100 copies of those. So again, you have to create things for collectors as well.
Yeah, that's part of the game.
And that's a sign level. And then we have the Mandas covers, which are super limited. And you're not going to see it till you get it. But let me tell you, people love that. Yeah. The what am I going to get type of thing. Anybody who's backed my old Kickstarters, they know how great those covers are. People get them and they're like, I'm never getting rid of this cover. And Amanda also signs the books.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool.
And then as well.
And then if you want all the covers, meaning Amanda's and the books and all the other ones, for the set, the 3, you get all of the books. So it's a lot of comics, but you get all the covers and you get everything with it.
That's what's up. Yeah. So you got things for the free retailers as well. That's really cool. So if they want to get in,
I think we only have 2 mystery boxes left. It's basically all the books, and then I shove a ton of cool stuff in the box. So it's everything from music to old comics to convention badges Amanda and I signed. It's filled with crazy stuff. It's probably the most important, the quickest thing to be sold out on my campaign. I think we just added 5 more, so I think there's 2 left. But it's the first thing to go in my campaigns because people love the mystery box. They do whole videos of opening them up and showing what's inside them, and I make sure there's a lot of stuff inside them, and it's worth a hell of a lot more than $300. You know, that's my goal, is to make that box crazy because everybody loves that kind of stuff. But on its basic level, it's 3 books. It's almost 90 pages of story, and it's epic, and it's violent, it's sexy, it's crazy. I'm trying to do the stuff that I want to read,
makes sense.
That I wish was out there, and that's basically at the core of every creator. Of course, they want to create things that they want to see. I'm sure you can relate to that, right, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to put myself in the position of the reader, right? First and foremost. I mean, we just talked about our customers are king, so it's always important to put yourself in the position of the reader and provide that content for them, which is why I respect that perspective so much. But this is incredible, guys. If you're watching this live, of course, Fantasema, you can go. It's on Kickstarter.com. I'm sure our mods are getting those links in the chat as well, and I want to thank them for that. I know they are always working hard on this. Well, before we get,
I want to see if your audience is paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. So go check that out, audience, if you are watching us live. Jimmy, before we get out of there, is there anything else that you have kind of rising that you're working on that you want to kind of highlight? I know you're doing your thing with these Kickstarters, man, and constantly delivering on them. But is there anything else that you got that you're working on? You mentioned Todd and the Gunslinger, but is there anything else that you got going?
Yeah, I mean, so this weekend I'm going to be at Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle, if anybody's around there, and then the next weekend after we're going to be in Kansas City for that con, and Amanda and I are working on a project, a follow-up book for the Pro, and so we have that working on the side. We have a couple of creator things. I'm also working on a Sex and Violence Volume 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been really. I know that's been really successful for you.
Yeah, so we're working on that. And as far as other things, there's a couple of things I can't talk about because I have to wait till the company announce it.
Yeah.
But I do have a couple of things coming up that people might find interesting, and then it will also make sense that I'm doing it when they see it. But I think my steady monthly is going to be the Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger for Todd McFarlane. That with Patrick Reynolds, man, it's an amazing looking book. It is, I will say, it is violent. So I will give a heads up for people. It's not for the gentle souls out there. But that's been keeping me busy, man. That and watching TV and going to the movies. I mean, it's been keeping me busy.
That's what it's about. So before we bounce, I'm going to fly through some of these super chats because I know some of them do, of course, mention Jimmy here. We have, Liam, I appreciate you becoming an Ultra Mac. Magneto became a Super Mac. Amber became an Ultra Mac. Bruce also gifted 2 memberships. I appreciate that. Our man's Vaughn, who I actually met not too long ago at MegaCon Orlando. He says, long time no see, gents. Love seeing you guys talking. Yes, I love this. It's very substantive, man, and I want to do it again with Jimmy if we get a chance. For sure, definitely, as he's coming out with more projects. We have James with a 2 says, Eternity Comics kicked ass in the, I guess, 80s indies were the best, he says.
Yeah, that was some of my first work. I was actually doing that on the side when I was working in advertising, and I did a book called Ninja and X Mutants, and they were black and white comics. I think they were $1.99, and they were only black and white comics with gray tones. They had a good run, but I think they kind of faded away. I think I think it just, the black and white market died.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Quick after that, but that was good times.
Makes sense. Head Case Laboratory with a 5 says, I feel DC oversaturated Harley Quinn. Mr. Costume says, also thank you, Jimmy, for your hard work throughout the years, and you too, Eric. Hell, Yaira, he says. So appreciate that. Thank you. So
well, I think when something, it was the reason why we asked them not to put the character in other books when we worked on it, because I felt like once the character has success, they start putting it everywhere, and nothing turns you off more than that.
Yeah.
So we were able to control it for the years we did work on the book.
There you go. We got a 10 from Defendo 99 says, I just put 2 and 2 together and realized that you're going to be at Kansas City Comic-Con next weekend. Looking forward to meeting you. I hope you're not talking about me. Jimmy's going to be there.
Eric's staying in the
yeah, I'll be hanging out here. We got some other stuff that we're working on, but yes, go meet Jimmy. We got Michael with it. Yes. We got Michael with it. Amanda's going to, I don't know if you said Amanda's going to be there as well, right?
Yeah, if you see me, that means Amanda's there. If you see her, that means I'm there.
There you go. Michael, appreciate it too. Says, great interview. Guys, we got our Brownwich with a 10 says, hey, chat, just here to find out when I can spend my Yaira money. The wait is killing me. Hell, Rippaverse, we are going to have some, just be on the lookout this week. We have a couple of different announcements that we're going to be letting you in on, Yaira included. We have ANCAP Gamer with a 44 months says, 44 months is a long time. YouTube Ultramac bought the newest Rippaverse book. Well, thank you so much. Excited for Yaira. Thank you. I do appreciate that as well. Again, Jimmy, man, we got to have you back. This has been great, man. Again, just I do.
Next time I'll bring Amanda with me.
Oh yeah, we'll get Amanda. We'll shoot the stuff.
Both of us.
Yes, that I would absolutely love that. I'm sure the audience would as well. Of course, we'll be in contact personally, man. I love picking your brain, man. Been cool picking up some game from you as far as the industry is concerned. Love speaking with vets on that note. But yes, guys, if you are watching us live, we are going to be doing more of these. Jimmy has been a wonderful guest for us, but expect more of these and expect Jimmy back, and we'll get Amanda back next time as well. Again, like I said, Jimmy, I appreciate you for joining us. We will be back this Thursday, chat with Razorfist. It's going to be a massive show as well. We're going to talk about his creative projects there. But I got to get up out of here. Jimmy has to leave as well. We will see you guys next time. We appreciate you so much. But as I always say, until next time, y'all be easy and peace out.
That'll do it for today's episode of For Canon's Sake. Whether you watched us live or listened on wherever you get your podcasts, we appreciate you. Be sure to follow us on all forms of social media and get more information at forcanonsake.com. We'll see you next time, and y'all be easy.